My name is Robert. I'm 80 years old, and I need to tell you about the worst decision I ever made. Not the worst business decision, God knows. I made plenty of those, but the worst decision as a father, as a human being, the kind of decision that doesn't just hurt for a few years. It hollows you out from the inside and never, ever stops. I'm telling you this story because maybe, just maybe, one of you out there is about to make the same mistake I did. And if I can stop even one person from living with what I live with every single day, then maybe this pain will have meant something. My daughter, Emily, was 26 years old when it happened. 26. She'd been married for 2 years to a good man named David, and they just found out they were pregnant. I remember the phone call when she told me. Her voice was shaking with joy, with terror, with all those emotions that come with becoming a parent for the first time. I was in my office when she called. Corner office, 15th floor, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. I'd worked 23 years to get that office. I told her I was proud of her, told her I loved her, told her I'd call her back later because I had a meeting in 5 minutes. That's who I was. That's who I'd become. A man who always had a meeting in 5 minutes. She was 12 weeks along when she started bleeding. It was a Tuesday morning, March 15th, 2011. I remember the date because I'd been preparing for the biggest presentation of my career. We were trying to secure a contract that would have meant $42 million for the company, and I'd been working on it for 8 months. 8 months of 80-hour weeks, of missing dinners, of falling asleep with my laptop open on my chest. My wife Karen called me at 7:30 in the morning. "Rob," she said, and I could hear something breaking in her voice. "Emily's in the hospital. She's losing the baby." I was already dressed, already had my briefcase in my hand. The presentation was at 10 o'clock. I had 2.5 hours. "Is she okay?" I asked. "Is Emily physically okay?" She's not injured. "But Rob, she's asking for you. She needs you." I looked at my briefcase. I looked at my watch. And then I said the words that I will regret until the day I die, and probably long after that if there's anything beyond this life. "I can't come right now. I have the Meridian presentation. It's at 10. I'll come right after. I promise. I'll be there by noon." There was silence on the other end. Not the kind of silence that means someone's thinking about what to say next. The kind of silence that means something fundamental has just broken, and both of you know it, but only one of you understands what it means yet. "Rob," my wife said quietly, "your daughter just lost her baby. She's lying in a hospital bed, and she's asking for her father." I know, and I'll be there. Just, Karen, this presentation is crucial. It's been 8 months of work. The whole team is counting on me. I'll be there by noon, maybe earlier, if it goes quickly. She needs you now. I understand that, but I also have responsibilities. To who, Rob? To who do you have responsibilities right now that matter more than your daughter? I was getting frustrated. Couldn't she see I was trying to do the right thing? Trying to balance everything? To the 73 people whose jobs depend on this contract. To our family's financial security. To... She's crying for you, Rob. She's 26 years old, and she just lost her first baby, and she's crying for her daddy. I checked my watch again. 7:35. I'll be there by noon. Tell her I love her. Tell her I'm so sorry about the baby, and I'll be there as soon as I possibly can. I hung up before Karen could say anything else. I told myself I was making the mature decision, the responsible decision. I told myself that Emily would understand. She knew how important my career was, how hard I worked to provide for our family. I told myself that a few hours wouldn't make any difference. The baby was already gone, and me being there or not being there wouldn't change that fact. I told myself a lot of things that morning, and every single one of them was a lie I needed to believe so I could live with myself. The presentation went perfectly. I mean, absolutely perfectly. I hit every point, answered every question, showed them projections and data that made their eyes light up. By 11:15, we had a handshake agreement. $42 million, the biggest win of my career. My team was ecstatic. They wanted to take me to lunch, to celebrate, to start planning the next steps. I told them I had to go, family emergency, and I drove to the hospital. I got there at 11:53, 7 minutes before noon, just like I'd promised. When I walked into that hospital room, I knew immediately that I'd made a mistake, not a small mistake. The kind of mistake that changes everything forever. Emily was lying in the bed, and Karen was sitting beside her, holding her hand. My daughter's face was red and swollen from crying. Her eyes were vacant, staring at nothing. And when I walked in, when she saw me, something happened that I'll never forget. She didn't smile. She didn't reach for me. She didn't cry. She just looked at me, really looked at me, like she was seeing something clearly for the first time in her life. "Hi, sweetheart," I said, and my voice cracked. "I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry about the baby." She nodded slowly. "How was your presentation?" The question hit me like a physical blow, not because of the words, because of the tone, flat, empty, like she already knew the answer, and it didn't matter anyway. It went well, but that doesn't matter right now. What matters is you. How are you feeling? What did the doctor say? "The presentation went well," she repeated, and she said it like she was testing the words, seeing how they felt in her mouth. "That's good, Dad. That's really good. I'm glad it went well." Karen was looking at me with an expression I'd never seen before. Not anger, something colder than anger, something like recognition, like she was finally seeing me for exactly who I was. "Emily, honey, I called for you," my daughter said quietly. "When they told me the baby was gone, when they did the ultrasound and there was no heartbeat, the first thing I did was ask Mom to call you because I needed my dad. I needed you to hold me and tell me it was going to be okay, even if it wasn't true. I just needed you there. I know, and I'm here now." "You're here now," she echoed. "It's 11:53. You said you'd be here by noon, and you made it with 7 minutes to spare. You kept your promise, didn't you, Dad?" I didn't know what to say. I didn't know how to explain, how to make her understand. The contract was important. It wasn't just about me. It was about the whole team. I was lying on a table with my legs in stirrups while a doctor pulled my dead baby out of my body, she said, and her voice never rose, never cracked. That's what made it so terrible, the absolute flatness of it. And you were in a conference room with a PowerPoint presentation. That's not fair. You're right. It's not fair. None of this is fair. I stayed at the hospital for 3 hours that day. I held Emily's hand when she let me, and I said all the things fathers are supposed to say. I'm here for you. I love you. We'll get through this together. You can try again when you're ready. Empty words. We both knew they were empty. She was polite to me, distant, like I was a well-meaning stranger who'd stop by to pay respects. When David arrived, he'd been out of town for work and caught the first flight back. She broke down in his arms. Really broke down, the kind of sobbing that comes from somewhere deep and primal. She'd been holding it in until he got there, until someone she could actually count on walked through that door. I went home that night and told myself it would be okay. She was in shock, she was grieving, but she'd forgive me eventually. She'd understand that I was trying to balance impossible demands, that I was doing my best. Weeks passed, then months. Emily recovered physically. The doctors said there was no reason she couldn't have a healthy pregnancy in the future. But something between us had died in that hospital room. And unlike her baby, it was never coming back. She stopped calling me, stopped asking me to lunch, stopped inviting me to Sunday dinners. When I called her, she answered. She was always polite, always civil, but the warmth was gone. It was like talking to someone who was doing their duty, checking a box. How are you? I'm fine, Dad. How's David? He's good. Are you doing okay? Really? Yes, Dad, I'm okay. I love you, Emily. I love you too. But she didn't. Not anymore. Not the way she used to. A year later, she got pregnant again. She told me over the phone. 3 months into the pregnancy, she was careful, cautious, didn't want to get too excited too early. I asked her if I could come visit, take her to lunch, celebrate with her. That's okay, Dad. We're keeping it low-key this time. She had a healthy baby girl, Sophia. Beautiful, perfect, 7 pounds, 3 ounces. I got a text message with a photo. The text said, "Thought you'd want to know. Sophia arrived this morning. Everyone's healthy." That's how I found out I was a grandfather. A text message. I drove to the hospital, uninvited, unannounced. When I got to Emily's room, there were flowers everywhere, balloons, family, and friends. David's parents were there, Emily's best friend from college, her cousin, Rachel. Me? I stood in the doorway like a stranger. Emily saw me, and her smile faltered for just a second. Just 1 second, but I saw it. That little flicker of disappointment, like she'd been hoping I wouldn't come. "Hi, Dad," she said. "Come meet your granddaughter." I held Sophia for maybe 5 minutes. She was warm and tiny and perfect, and I felt this overwhelming rush of love for her and an equally overwhelming rush of grief for everything I'd already lost. Emily took her back gently but firmly, like she was rescuing something precious from someone who couldn't be trusted with it. I wasn't invited to the house for the first 3 months. "We're just getting settled," Emily said. "It's been pretty chaotic." But I saw the photos on Facebook. David's parents visiting, Emily's friends bringing meals, everyone welcomed into the inner circle. Everyone except me. When I finally was invited over, it was for Sophia's christening, an obligation invitation, the kind you send because not sending it would raise questions. I went, of course. I wore my best suit, brought an expensive gift, a silver engraved frame, the kind of thing that sits on a shelf and means nothing. I watched my daughter with her baby, saw how she lit up when Sophia smiled, saw how David's mother sat beside her, and they laughed together at some private joke. I saw the family Emily had built, the circle of love and trust she'd created, and I wasn't in it. I was adjacent to it. I was tolerated within it, but I wasn't part of it. That was 15 years ago. Sophia is 15 now, a sophomore in high school, smart as hell, wants to be a marine biologist. I see her maybe 4 times a year. Birthdays, holidays, brief, awkward visits where I'm Grandpa Rob and she's polite but disinterested. Emily had 2 more children, Michael, who's 12, and James, who's 9. I love them all desperately, helplessly, from a distance that I created and can never close. Emily and I are cordial. We text occasionally. We see each other at family gatherings. We've never talked about that day. Not really, not honestly. There's a wall between us built from one terrible choice, and neither of us knows how to break it down. Or maybe we do know, and we both understand it's too late. Last year, Emily's marriage hit a rough patch. Nothing catastrophic. Just the normal strains that come with 3 kids and 2 careers in life. I heard about it from Karen. Emily didn't tell me directly. I wanted to call her, to reach out, to tell her I was there if she needed anything. But I didn't know if I had the right anymore. I wrote her a letter instead, sat down at my desk, not the corner office anymore. I retired 7 years ago and wrote her a letter by hand. It took me 4 hours and 6 attempts. I told her about that day, about the choice I made, about how I'd replayed it 10,000 times in my mind, trying to figure out how I could have been so blind, so stupid, so monumentally selfish. I told her I knew she'd never forgiven me. I told her I didn't blame her. I told her that if I could go back, if I could have just one moment of my life to live differently, it would be that one. I would have told my boss the presentation had to wait. I would have told my team that something more important had come up. I would have driven to that hospital and held my daughter's hand while she went through the worst moment of her young life. I mailed the letter. 3 weeks later, I got a response. Emily had written back. My hands were shaking when I opened the envelope. Her letter was short, maybe 200 words. She said she appreciated my honesty. She said she knew I loved her. She said she'd forgiven me a long time ago because holding on to anger was exhausting and she had 3 kids and a life to live. But then she wrote something that broke me completely. She said, "I forgave you, Dad, but that doesn't mean it didn't change everything. You taught me something important that day. You taught me that when people say you're their priority, you should watch what they do, not what they say. You taught me that love isn't just a feeling, it's a choice you make moment by moment. And you taught me that some moments only come once, and if you miss them, they're gone forever. I've tried to be a different kind of parent because of what I learned. When Sophia calls me, I stop what I'm doing. When Michael needs me, I'm there. When James wants to tell me about his day, I listen, really listen. So, in a strange way, you made me a better mother by showing me exactly what not to do. I don't hate you. I don't even resent you anymore, but I also don't need you the way I used to. I built a life without you at the center of it, and that life is good and full and complete. You can be part of it on the edges, and that's okay. But you need to understand we're never getting back what we lost. That version of us died on March 15th, 2011, in a hospital room where I needed you and you weren't there. I keep that letter in my desk drawer. I read it sometimes, usually late at night when I can't sleep, when the regret sits on my chest like a physical weight. People ask me sometimes about my biggest accomplishment in life. They expect me to talk about my career. 40 years in corporate finance, retired as senior vice president, helped close deals worth hundreds of millions of dollars. That presentation I chose over my daughter, the $42 million contract, we lost it 6 months later when the client went with a competitor. All that work, all that sacrifice, and it didn't even matter. The company I worked for was bought out 3 years after I retired. The new owners gutted the whole division. Half the people I worked with were laid off. The other half took early retirement packages. The office where I spent 10-hour days, where I missed birthdays and school plays and ordinary Tuesday evenings with my family. It's a WeWork now. Startups rent desks by the month. Everything I built there is gone, erased, forgotten, irrelevant. But my daughter is still here. My grandchildren are still here. And the distance between us is still here too, permanent as a scar. I see young fathers sometimes, guys in their 30s and 40s, checking their phones during their kids' soccer games, taking work calls at the dinner table, staying late at the office because there's just one more thing that needs to be done. I want to grab them by the shoulders and shake them. I want to tell them, your kids don't care about your job title. They don't care about your salary. They don't care about your ambitions or your stress or your very important meetings. They care about whether you show up, whether you're there when they need you, whether they can count on you when their world is falling apart. I had a heart attack 2 years ago. Mild one, the doctor said, a warning shot. Emily came to the hospital with flowers and magazines. She sat with me for an hour, made sure I was comfortable, told me she loved me. Then she went home to her family. I wanted to ask her to stay longer. I wanted to tell her I was scared. I wanted to say all the things I should have said 20-some years ago. But I didn't have the right anymore. I'd used up my chances. I think about dying a lot now, not in a morbid way, just realistically. I'm 80 years old. I've got maybe 5 years left if I'm lucky, maybe 10 if I'm very lucky. And I know how it's going to end. Emily will be there. She'll hold my hand because that's who she is. She's a good person, a better person than I ever was. She'll tell me she loves me, and she'll mean it in the way you can love someone who hurt you, but whom you've decided to forgive anyway. But she won't grieve the way David's parents will be grieved when they die. She won't feel that bottomless loss, that sense that a piece of her foundation has crumbled. Because I was never her foundation, I forfeited that right on March 15th, 2011. You want to know what I would give to go back? Everything. I'd give everything. The corner office, the salary, the title, the respect of my colleagues, every dollar I ever made. All of it. I'd trade it all for one afternoon in that hospital room, holding my daughter's hand, telling her I was there and I wasn't leaving. But that's not how life works. You don't get do-overs. You don't get second chances at the moments that matter most. You make your choice and then you live with it, and if you're lucky, if you're very, very lucky, the people you hurt find a way to forgive you even though nothing is ever the same. So, if you're listening to this and you're thinking about skipping your kid's recital for a work dinner or missing your partner's important moment because you've got a deadline or choosing your career over the people who love you, stop. Just stop. Whatever you think you're going to gain, whatever you think you're working toward, I promise you, it's not worth it. It's not worth the look in your child's eyes when they realize you're not coming. It's not worth the slow erosion of trust that happens when you choose work over family one too many times. It's not worth the relationship you'll never get back, the distance you'll never be able to close, the love that withers from neglect until there's nothing left but obligation and old photographs. I was 80 years old before I truly understood that success isn't measured in dollars or promotions or corner offices. It's measured in the people who want you there when they're scared, who call you first when something amazing happens, who really know, that you'll show up when they need you. By that measure, I'm a failure, a well-dressed, well-pensioned, utterly hollow failure. Emily didn't need my money. She needed me, and I wasn't there. That's the truth I wake up with every morning and go to bed with every night. That's the truth that will follow me to my grave. I chose a presentation over my daughter's broken heart. I chose ambition over love. I chose everything that doesn't matter over the only thing that does. And she never forgave me. Not really. And I don't blame her. You know what the cruelest part is? I thought I was being responsible. I genuinely believed I was making the mature choice, balancing competing priorities, being a provider, living up to my commitments. I'd spent my whole life being told that success meant sacrifice, that you had to work hard to give your family a good life, that providing financially was how a man showed love. And I believed it. God help me, I believed every word. Nobody told me that your daughter doesn't remember the size of the house you bought her. She remembers whether you were there when her world collapsed. Nobody told me that your grandchildren won't care about your job title. They'll care about whether Grandpa showed up to their basketball games, whether he knew their favorite ice cream flavor, whether he was someone they could count on. Nobody told me that at the end of your life, you don't wish you'd spent more time at the office. You wish you'd spent more time with the people who needed you, loved you, wanted you there. Except that's not quite true, is it? People did tell me. Karen told me, not with words, but with the way her voice got tired when I said I'd be home late again, with the way she stopped, asking me to come to things because she knew what my answer would be. Emily told me, with the way she'd get excited when I actually showed up to something like my presence was a rare gift instead of a given, with the way she stopped telling me about the little things in her life because she knew I was always distracted, always half listening, always checking my watch. The world told me over and over I just wasn't listening. I was too busy, too important, too focused on climbing the next rung of the ladder. Here's what nobody tells you about ladders. You can climb all the way to the top and still end up alone. You can reach every goal, hit every target, exceed every expectation, and still lose everything that matters. I did that. I climbed that ladder right into a corner office with a beautiful view of a city full of people who don't know my name and don't care that I exist. And from that great height, I watched my relationship with my daughter crumble. Slowly at first, then all at once. A missed recital here, a canceled lunch there, a work trip during her college graduation weekend. Death by 1,000 cuts. Each one justified, each one rationalized, each one necessary at the time. Until one day, there was nothing left to cut. Just scar tissue and the memory of what used to be there. I see David with Emily now. The way he looks at her, the way he shows up for her, the way he rearranged his entire work schedule after the miscarriage to be home with her for 3 months. He's the father to her that I should have been. He's the grandfather to their children that I'll never be. Because he learned something I didn't learn until it was too late. Your presence is the only gift that matters. Everything else is just stuff. When Sophia graduated from 8th grade last year, I went to the ceremony, sat in the back, clapped when her name was called, took a few photos from a distance. Afterwards, there was a family dinner at Emily's house. I wasn't invited to the dinner, just the ceremony. I sat in my car in their driveway for 20 minutes, watching through the window as they all laughed and celebrated together. David's parents were there, cutting the cake. Emily's college roommate was there, the one who flew out from Seattle. Even the neighbors were there, the ones who'd watched Sophia grow up, but not me, because I'd made my choice 15 years ago, and choices have consequences. I wanted to knock on the door. I wanted to walk in and say, I know I don't deserve to be here, but she's my granddaughter too, and I love her, and I'm so proud of her. But I didn't. I started the car and drove home and sat alone in my house. The house I bought with all that career success, the house that's too big for one person, the house where every room echoes with everything I sacrificed to afford it. Is this what winning looks like? Because if it is, I'd like to go back and lose differently. I'd like to have less money and more memories. I'd like to have a smaller house that's full of people who want to be there instead of a mansion where I eat dinner alone every night. I'd like to be the grandpa that Sophia calls when she's excited about something, not the one she sends a polite thank you note to twice a year. But again, that's not how life works. You play the hand you dealt yourself. My therapist, yes, I have a therapist now, started seeing her after the heart attack, asks me sometimes why I'm telling her all this, what I hope to accomplish by processing the same regret over and over. I tell her the truth. I don't know. Maybe I'm looking for absolution that doesn't exist. Maybe I'm hoping that if I understand it well enough, I can somehow go back and change it. Or maybe I'm just an old man who wants someone to listen to him, to bear witness to his failures, to confirm that yes, you really did screw up as badly as you think you did. She asked me once if I'd ever considered telling this story publicly, sharing it somehow, so other people might learn from my mistakes. I laughed at first. Who wants to hear from a failed father? Who wants relationship advice from someone whose daughter can't stand to be in the same room with him? But then I thought about it, about all those young parents out there grinding away at their careers, telling themselves that they're doing it for their families, that they'll make it up to their kids later, that there will be time. I thought about all the fathers in conference rooms right now, checking their watches, calculating whether they can make it to their daughter's soccer game if the meeting ends on time. I thought about all those people making the same choice I made, telling themselves the same lies I told myself. And I thought, maybe if one person hears this and makes a different choice, maybe that's worth something. Maybe that's the only good thing that can come from the worst decision I ever made. So I'm telling you this, I'm an 80-year-old man who chose his career over his daughter's broken heart, and I've paid for it every single day since. I'm telling you that the meeting doesn't matter. The presentation doesn't matter. The promotion, the raise, the client, the deadline, none of it matters. Not compared to the moment your child needs you. Not compared to being there when someone you love is in pain. When Emily called me from that hospital, I thought I was making a rational decision. I thought I was weighing priorities, being responsible, honoring my commitments. But I wasn't. I was choosing comfort over courage. I was choosing what was easy, giving a presentation I'd already prepared, over what was hard, sitting with my daughter in her grief and not being able to fix it. I was choosing to be a successful businessman over being a good father, and that choice cost me my daughter, not in a dramatic final way. We didn't have a big fight. She didn't cut me off completely, but I lost her anyway, slowly, quietly, irreversibly. The Emily who used to call me every Sunday to tell me about her week, she's gone. The Emily who used to ask my advice about big decisions, she's gone. The Emily who believed her father would always be there when she needed him, she died on March 15th, 2011, in a hospital room where she called for me and I didn't come. The woman who exists now is someone else. Someone who learned to build her life around my absence instead of my presence. Someone who's polite and cordial and appropriate, but who will never again make the mistake of depending on me. I did that. I created that distance. I taught her that lesson, and I hate myself for it. Not in a dramatic, overwhelming way, just a quiet, constant ache that never goes away. It's there when I wake up in the morning. It's there when I see her photos on Facebook. It's there when I pass by her house and see the lights on and the family inside. It's especially there during the holidays. Christmas used to be at our house, mine and Karen's. The whole family would come, kids running around, presents everywhere. Karen cooking her famous prime rib that everyone pretended to like, even though it was always slightly overdone. We'd play games after dinner, take photos by the tree, fall asleep on the couch with full stomachs and full hearts. Now, Emily hosts Christmas at her house. I'm invited. Of course I'm invited, because Emily is nothing if not appropriate. But I arrive at 2 o'clock. After the morning traditions are over, I stay until 5 before the evening traditions begin. I'm there for the middle part, the polite part, the part where we exchange gifts and make small talk and pretend we're closer than we are. Then I drive home to my empty house and heat up leftovers and watch old movies until I fall asleep in my recliner. Karen left me, by the way. I didn't mention that earlier, but she should probably be part of this story. She left me 6 years ago, not dramatically, not angrily, just quietly, sadly. The way you'd leave a house that used to be a home, but is now just a building. She said she'd spent 40 years waiting for me to choose her, and she was tired of waiting. She said I'd always loved my career more than I loved anything else, and she was done pretending otherwise. She said she wanted to spend whatever years she had left with someone who was actually present, actually engaged, actually there. We're divorced now. She remarried last year. Nice guy named Tom, retired teacher. Volunteers at the animal shelter. They travel together, take cooking classes, have dinner parties with friends. I see the photos sometimes. Karen looks happy. In a way, she never looked with me. Lighter, like a weight has been lifted. I'm glad for her. I really am. She deserves happiness, deserves someone who shows up, who's present, who chooses her first. She deserves what I never gave her. Emily went to the wedding. She was in the photos too, laughing with her mom and new stepdad, looking relaxed and joyful, looking the way she used to look before. I taught her that people who say they love you might not be there when you need them most. So here I am, 80 years old, retired, divorced, estranged from my only child, barely relevant in my grandchildren's lives, living in a house I bought with career success in a neighborhood full of other successful people who are just as alone as I am. This is what I built. This is what I chose. And I'd give anything to go back and choose differently. But I can't. None of us can. We get one life, one chance, one opportunity to be there for the people who matter. I was 54 years old when Emily lost that baby. 54. I thought I had so much time. Time to make it up to her. Time to be a better father later. Time to prioritize family once I'd secured this one last deal, climbed this one last rung. I thought there would be other moments, other chances, but that was the moment. That was the chance. And I missed it because I couldn't see past a conference room and a presentation and $42 million. That didn't even matter 6 months later. You know what's funny? I can't remember a single detail from that presentation, not one. I've tried to recall it, what I said, how I said it, what questions they asked. It's completely gone, erased, irrelevant. But I remember everything about that hospital room. The way Emily's face looked when I walked in, 4.5 hours too late. The flatness in her voice when she asked me how the presentation went. The way Karen looked at me like she was seeing me clearly for the first time and didn't like what she saw. I remember the smell of the hospital, that distinct antiseptic smell mixed with something else, something sad and final. I remember the stuffed bear on Emily's bedside table, something David must have brought her. I remember thinking, that should have been from me. I remember leaving that room and getting in my car and sitting there for 20 minutes, telling myself everything was fine. Emily would forgive me. This would blow over. I remember being so sure that I'd made the right choice. I was an idiot, a blind, selfish, career-obsessed idiot who thought success was measured in contracts and titles and the view from your office window. If I could talk to my 54-year-old self right now, I'd tell him that presentation doesn't matter. That contract doesn't matter. Your job, your title, your carefully constructed career, none of it matters. What matters is that your daughter is lying in a hospital bed having just lost her first child, and she's asking for you, and you have one chance to show her that she can count on you, to show her that when the worst happens, you'll be there. Don't go to the presentation. Don't try to balance things. Don't tell yourself you can do both. You can't. You have to choose. And If you choose wrong, you'll spend the next 26 years living with that choice. You'll watch your daughter build a life where she doesn't need you. You'll meet your grandchildren from a distance. You'll get divorced because your wife finally admits she's been alone in your marriage for decades. You'll retire and realize that everything you worked for has evaporated, but the damage you did is permanent. You'll die a lonely old man with money in the bank and no one who really wants to be at your funeral. But I can't talk to that man. He's gone. He made his choice, and there's no going back. All I can do is talk to you, and I'm begging you, don't make the same mistake I made. Don't tell yourself you're being responsible when you're really being a coward. Don't tell yourself there will be other chances when this might be the only chance that matters. Don't tell yourself your child will understand when all they'll understand is that you weren't there. I've lost so much. I've lost my daughter's trust, my wife, my grandchildren's affection, my self-respect. I've lost the version of myself that I thought I was. The good man, the provider, the responsible father who was doing everything right. That man never existed. He was a fiction I told myself so I could live with my choices. The real me chose a PowerPoint presentation over his daughter's pain. The real me valued a conference room full of strangers over the person he claimed to love most in the world. The real me destroyed the most important relationship in his life because he couldn't see past his own ambition. You want to know the worst part? I thought I was teaching Emily something important. I thought I was modeling responsibility, work ethic, commitment to excellence. I thought she'd grow up and appreciate the sacrifices I made, the hard choices I had to navigate, the way I balanced everything. She did learn something from me, just not what I intended. She learned that when someone shows you who they are, you should believe them. She learned that actions speak louder than words, and all my words about loving her couldn't overcome the action of not showing up when she needed me. She learned to build her support system around people who actually show up, her husband, her friends, her mother, David's parents, people who don't need a calendar invite and a 3-week advance notice to be there when she's hurting. I taught my daughter not to count on me. What kind of father does that? What kind of father teaches his child that his love is conditional, that it comes with caveats and scheduling conflicts and competing priorities? I'll tell you what kind. The kind who ends up exactly where I am, alone. Karen tried to tell me. God, she tried for years. You're missing Emily's childhood, she'd say. You're going to regret this. And I'd get defensive, tell her she didn't understand the pressure I was under, the importance of what I was doing. I'd remind her about the mortgage, the college fund, the retirement savings. I'd act like I was the only one making sacrifices, like my long hours at the office were somehow more noble than her long hours raising our daughter. She stopped trying eventually, just went quiet, stopped arguing, stopped expecting anything different. I thought that meant I'd won the argument. It didn't. It meant she'd given up on me. It meant she'd accepted that I was never going to choose her or Emily first, and she needed to adjust her expectations accordingly. That's what happens when you consistently show people they're not your priority. They don't fight harder for your attention. They just stop expecting it. They build their lives around your absence. They learn to be okay without you. And then one day you look up and realize you're not part of their lives anymore. You're just adjacent to them, optional, easily replaced. I go to therapy every Thursday at 2 o'clock. It's the most consistent appointment I've ever kept, more consistent than I ever was with family, dinners, or school events, or my daughter's life. Funny how I can show up for a therapist I pay by the hour, but I couldn't show up for my daughter when her heart was breaking. Dr. Morrison asked me last month what I would say to Emily if I had no fear of consequences. If I could just speak completely honestly, I told her I'd say, "I'm sorry. I'm so profoundly, devastatingly sorry. I failed you in the worst possible moment, and I've failed you in 1,000 small moments since then. I chose my ego over your needs. I chose comfort over courage. I chose everything that doesn't matter over the only thing that does. I know you've forgiven me, or at least you say you have, but I also know that forgiveness doesn't erase consequences. It doesn't bring back the version of us that died in that hospital room. It doesn't make you trust me again. It doesn't make you need me. I know I'm on the outside now, and I put myself there, and I don't get to complain about it. But I want you to know, I see it. I see exactly what I destroyed. I see the relationship we could have had, the grandfather I could have been, the father you deserved. I see all of it with terrible clarity now, when it's 26 years too late to matter. And I want you to know that if I could go back, if I could have just one moment to live differently, it would be that one. I would walk out of that conference room. I would tell them the presentation had to wait. I would drive to that hospital, and I would hold your hand, and I would stay there as long as you needed me. I would do what fathers are supposed to do. Show up. Be present. Choose you. I would choose you. Dr. Morrison asked me why I don't say that to Emily. I told her the truth, because it wouldn't change anything. Emily already knows I'm sorry. She already knows I regret it. What she doesn't know is whether I would make a different choice if I had to do it over again. And honestly, I don't know either. That's the part that haunts me. I'd like to think I'd choose differently. I'd like to believe I've learned something, that I've grown, that I'm a different person now. But I'm not sure, because the same instincts that drove me then, the need to prove myself, to be successful, to live up to expectations, those instincts are still in me. They're quieter now because I'm old and retired and there's nothing left to prove. But if I was still 54, still climbing, still hungry, I don't know. And that uncertainty is its own special kind of hell. I watch young fathers in the grocery store sometimes, stressed guys in their 30s with kids hanging off the shopping cart, checking their phones, looking exhausted. I want to stop them. I want to say, I know you're tired. I know the job is demanding and money is tight. And there's always something that needs to be done. But please, please, don't miss the moments that matter. Don't let work become your excuse for absence. Don't tell yourself you're doing it for them when really you're doing it for you, for your ego, for your idea of what success looks like. But I don't say anything, because who am I to give advice? I'm just a lonely old man buying groceries for one, going home to an empty house, spending my evenings watching television shows. I don't really care about just to fill the silence. I had a scare last year, thought it might be cancer. Went in for some tests, spent 2 weeks waiting for results, confronting my mortality in a very real way. And you know what I thought about during those 2 weeks? Not my career achievements, not the deals I'd closed or the promotions I'd earned. I thought about Emily, about Sophia and Michael and James, about all the moments I'd missed and would never get back, about dying alone because I'd spent my life prioritizing everything except the people who actually mattered. The tests came back negative, just a scare, nothing serious. But it clarified something for me. When you're facing death, you don't think about your job. You think about your people, the ones you love, the ones who love you, the connections that make life worth living. And if you've spent your whole life choosing work over those connections, if you've traded presence for profit, time for titles, relationships for resumes, then you get to die the way you lived, alone, successful, and utterly empty. I don't want that to be my legacy. But I'm afraid it already is. Emily will cry at my funeral. I know she will because she's a good person. She'll say nice things, share pleasant memories from when she was young, before everything changed. David will put his arm around her and comfort her. Her kids will look appropriately somber. My ex-wife might come, might sit in the back, might feel a complicated mix of sadness and relief. And then they'll all go home to their lives, their full, connected, meaningful lives, and they'll be okay because they learned to be okay without me, because I taught them to be okay without me, because absence was my most consistent presence in their lives. That's my legacy, not the contracts I closed or the promotions I earned, not the corner office or the salary or any of it. My legacy is an absence, a hole in the shape of a father who could have been there but chose not to be. Sometimes I drive by Emily's house, not in a creepy way, just when I'm in the neighborhood, which I probably shouldn't be in the first place because I don't really have a reason to be there. But I drive by and I see the lights on and I imagine what's happening inside. Dinner, probably. Homework at the kitchen table. Michael practicing piano. James telling some elaborate story about school. Sophia texting her friends. Normal family life, the kind I never made time for. The kind that seemed boring and unimportant compared to conference calls and business, trips, and climbing the corporate ladder. I'd give everything I have to be inside that house right now, not as a guest, not as an obligation, as someone they want there, someone whose presence makes things better instead of awkward, someone who knows the kids' schedules and inside jokes and daily routines, someone who belongs. But I don't belong there. I gave up that right when I chose a presentation over presence, ambition over attention, success over showing up. You can't buy your way back from that. You can't apologize your way back. You can't wait it out or hope time heals all wounds, because some wounds just scar over, and the scar tissue is permanent. I know what some of you are thinking. It's been 26 years. Surely Emily has moved past it by now. Surely one mistake, however terrible, doesn't define an entire relationship. And you're right, it shouldn't, but it does, because it wasn't just one mistake. It was the culmination of 1,000 smaller choices, 1,000 moments where I chose work over family, career over connection, The miscarriage was just the moment where it all became crystal clear. The moment where Emily finally saw the pattern she'd been living with her whole life. The moment where she stopped making excuses for me and started seeing me exactly as I was. I wasn't there for her first day of kindergarten. I had a meeting. I missed her middle school graduation. I was traveling for work. I forgot her 16th birthday dinner. I got the dates confused because I was focused on a merger. I promised to help her move into her college dorm and canceled the morning of something urgent had come up at the office. Every single time I had a reason. Every single time I told myself it couldn't be helped, that she'd understand, that I'd make it up to her later. But there is no later. There's only now, moment by moment, choice by choice. And I chose wrong over and over and over again until the day I chose wrong in a way that couldn't be explained away or rationalized or forgiven. The day my daughter lost her first baby and I chose a conference room over a hospital room. You know what kills me? The certainty in her voice when she told me we'd never get back what we lost. Not anger, not resentment, just calm, clear-eyed acceptance, like she'd done the math and understood the equation perfectly. Love minus presence equals distance. Distance multiplied by time equals permanent. I couldn't argue with her because she was right. We're never getting it back. The relationship we could have had, should have had, it's gone, dead, buried in a grave I dug with my own choices. What we have now is cordial, civil, appropriate. It's Sunday phone calls where we discuss the weather and the kids' activities and nothing of substance. It's birthday cards with generic messages. It's holiday visits where everyone is polite and careful and counting the minutes until it's acceptable to leave. It's a relationship defined by obligation rather than affection, duty rather than desire. Is this what I worked so hard for? Is this what all those long hours and late nights and missed moments were supposed to earn me? A comfortable retirement where I sit alone in a house I bought with blood money, not literal blood, but the lifeblood of my relationships, the vitality of my connections, the living tissue of my family. I have money in the bank. I have a pension. I have investments and property and all the markers of success. And I'd set fire to every dollar if it meant I could go back to March 15th, 2011 and make a different choice. But money doesn't work that way. Success doesn't work that way. Life doesn't work that way. You make your choices and then you live with them. And if you're very unlucky, you live long enough to understand exactly how wrong you were. I'm 80 years old and I understand perfectly. I see with terrible clarity what I traded away. I see the grandfather I could have been, the one who knows his grandkids' favorite books, who teaches them to fish, who they call when they're excited about something because they know he'll care. I see the father I could have been, the one his daughter calls first with good news, bad news, any news, the one she trusts, depends on, wants in her life, not because she should, but because she does. I see the husband I could have been, present, engaged, choosing partnership over ambition. I see all the versions of myself I could have been if I just understood one simple truth: you can be successful at work and a failure at life. You can climb every ladder and still end up at the bottom. You can win every prize except the ones that matter. I won. I succeeded. I achieved everything I set out to achieve in my career. And I lost everything that made life worth living in the process. So here's what I want you to understand. Really understand. Deep in your bones, where truth lives, your job doesn't love you back. Your career won't hold your hand when you're scared. Your ambition won't sit beside your hospital bed. Your success won't mourn you when you're gone. But the people you're ignoring while you chase those things, they will, or they would have, if you hadn't taught them not to need you. If you hadn't shown them that you can't be counted on. If you hadn't prioritized everything else above them so consistently that they finally accepted the message you were sending. I'm sending this message into the void, hoping it reaches someone who needs to hear it, someone who's about to choose their career over their kids' school play, someone who's about to miss their partner's important moment because of a work obligation, someone who's convinced themselves that they're doing it for their family when really they're doing it for themselves. Stop. Just stop. Whatever you think you're going to gain, I promise you, it's not worth what you'll lose. I lost my daughter on March 15th, 2011. Not literally. She's still alive, still living her life, still being an amazing mother to her 3 kids. But I lost the version of her that loved me unconditionally, that believed in me completely, that needed me fundamentally. I lost the relationship we could have had. I lost my place in her life, my role in her heart. I lost everything that matters, and I did it to myself. Nobody forced me to go to that presentation. Nobody held a gun to my head and made me choose work over family. I did it willingly, eagerly even, because I'd spent my entire adult life believing that success was the goal, that providing financially was the same as being present emotionally, that my work was important enough to justify any sacrifice. I was wrong, so catastrophically, devastatingly wrong. And now I'm 80 years old, and I have to live with that wrongness every single day. I have to watch my daughter's life from a distance. I have to love my grandchildren from the sidelines. I have to exist in the margins of a family that I should be at the center of. That's my punishment, not divine judgment, just natural consequences. The inevitable result of choosing wrong too many times. If you take nothing else from this, take this. When someone you love needs you, be there. Not later. Not after the meeting. Not when it's more convenient. Now, in the moment, when it matters. Because some moments only come once, and if you miss them, they're gone forever. Just like Emily is gone, not dead, but gone in every way that matters. Gone from the life we could have had together. Gone from the relationship I destroyed with my own hands. Gone. And I did that. I chose that. And I'll regret it until the day I die, and probably long after that if there's anything beyond this life. Don't be me. Please, God, don't be me. Be there. Show up. Choose the people you love over everything else. Because in the end, and the end comes faster than you think, they're all that matters. They're the only thing that ever mattered. And if you figure that out too late, like I did, you get to spend the rest of your life knowing exactly what you lost and exactly whose fault it was. Trust me, you don't want that. You really, really don't want that.